There is a kind of weariness that does not come from the body but from the soul, an invisible weight that does not rest on the shoulders, yet drains inner strength day after day. Charles Spurgeon knew this place well. He understood that anxiety is not merely a passing feeling, but a silent prison that steals the present while promising to protect the future, and never delivers. When Spurgeon said that anxiety does not remove tomorrow's trouble but only robs today of its strength, he was exposing a lie many believe without realizing it, the idea that worrying is a form of preparation, as if anguish were a virtue, as if fear were wisdom, as if carrying tomorrow's burden ahead of time were a sign of spiritual maturity. But it is not. Anxiety has never solved a problem. It only multiplies pain. It does not illuminate the path. It darkens the present. It does not strengthen faith. It exhausts it. And while you try to control a tomorrow that has not yet arrived, today slips through your fingers, drained, weary, stripped of vitality. Spurgeon spoke this as someone who knew anguish from the inside. He did not preach from a pedestal removed from human suffering. He preached from a heart that had already been crushed by a restless mind. He knew anxiety does not target the weak. It attacks those who care deeply, who feel intensely, who carry responsibility, who want to do everything right. The problem is that anxiety deceives us into thinking we are being responsible, when in reality we are being consumed. It makes you live in tomorrow while being trapped in today. It makes you suffer over what has not happened, over scenarios that may never exist, over pains not yet born. And meanwhile, real life, the life God gave you to live now, is slowly drained away. Spurgeon understood that anxiety is, at its core, a desperate attempt to seize control that was never ours. It is the heart saying, if I think hard enough, if I anticipate everything, if I worry enough, maybe I can prevent suffering. But suffering does not obey predictions, and peace is not born from control, it is born from trust. Anxiety promises security, but delivers exhaustion. It promises preparation, but delivers paralysis. It promises protection, but delivers wear. And perhaps this is exactly how you are living. Tired without knowing why, exhausted without physical strain, burdened by thoughts that never rest. You sleep, but you do not rest. You wake up already tired. You live as if you are always late for something that never arrives. Spurgeon would say, this happens because anxiety steals the energy God gave for today and wastes it trying to solve tomorrow. But God never called you to carry 2 days at once. He gives daily grace, daily strength, daily provision. When you try to live tomorrow today, you demand from yourself a strength that has not yet been released, and that exhausts the soul. Anxiety is not merely an emotional issue, it is a spiritual conflict, because at its core, it is born when the heart forgets who governs time, when the mind tries to occupy God's place, when fear begins to speak louder than trust. Spurgeon believed God never promised the absence of trouble, but he did promise constant presence. He never said tomorrow would be easy, but he said grace would be sufficient. Anxiety ignores these promises and insists on carrying alone what it was never meant to carry. Perhaps you are living as if everything depends on you, as if you don't think hard enough, everything will collapse, as if you relax even a little, something will go wrong, as if God needs your anxiety to keep the world running, but he does not. Anxiety is the price we pay when we try to be providence, when we try to anticipate what only God can sustain, when we try to live in the future without trusting the one who is already there. Spurgeon reminds us, with this simple and powerful phrase, that tomorrow will have its own troubles and God will be there too. What he does not want is for you to arrive there already exhausted, already wounded, already drained by anticipated suffering that never solved anything. Today needs you whole. It needs your attention, it needs your presence, it needs your faith. And anxiety steals all of that. It divides the heart, fragments the mind, scatters energy, and at the end of the day, you realize you suffered twice, once in imagination and once in reality. Spurgeon believed peace is not the absence of problems, but the presence of God in the midst of them. And that presence can only be experienced now, never in an imagined tomorrow. Anxiety pulls you out of the present. Faith anchors you in it. Perhaps this word reaches you not to say you are weak for feeling anxious, but to remind you that you were not made to live this way. God did not call you to survive in a constant state of alert. He called you to trust, to rest, to walk one day at a time. Because when you try to live all days at once, you end up not fully living any of them. Anxiety does not remove tomorrow's problem. It steals today's strength. It steals today's joy. It steals today's presence. It steals today's faith. And Spurgeon calls us back to this simple and profound place, to live today with God and leave tomorrow in His hands. Not because tomorrow does not matter, but because it does not belong to you. Today is where grace is. Tomorrow is where God already will be. And perhaps for the first time in a long while you can breathe and release the weight that was never yours to carry. When anxiety governs, it does more than steal the day's energy. It distorts how we see God. Little by little, the heart stops seeing Him as Father and begins to see Him as a distant observer. The mind acts as if it were alone, responsible for sustaining what only grace can sustain, and that is deeply exhausting, because human beings were not created to carry the weight of the future, but to walk daily with God. Spurgeon knew anxiety thrives when faith is pushed to the background of the soul. Not because faith disappears, but because it stops being exercised. The person still believes, still confesses, still prays, but no longer rests. They speak of God, but live as if everything depends on themselves. And this inner contradiction produces a quiet, continuous wear, almost imperceptible, until the soul finds itself exhausted without knowing exactly why. Anxiety creates the illusion that if you are not worried, you are being irresponsible. But Spurgeon dismantles this lie by showing that worry is not the same as care. Care acts wisely in the present. Anxiety suffers over a future that does not yet exist. One is born of trust, the other is born of fear. When the heart is anxious, it tries to live 2 days at once. It tries to solve today what can only be faced tomorrow. It tries to carry a burden that has not yet been placed on its shoulders. And the inevitable result is inner collapse, not because the problem is too big, but because time itself is being violated. God distributes grace in daily portions. When you try to anticipate tomorrow, you demand from yourself a grace that has not yet been given. Spurgeon believed God never calls us to trust Him in bulk, but step by step. One day, one prayer, one decision. One breath at a time. Anxiety breaks this sacred rhythm and runs ahead as if it could protect the heart through anticipated suffering. But what it actually does is pull the person away from the only place where peace can be found, the present, lived with God. Perhaps you have lived so long with anxiety that you no longer notice how much it has drained your spiritual life. Prayer has become heavy. Scripture feels distant. Worship sounds mechanical, not because you lost a faith, but because anxiety occupies the space where rest should be. It makes too much noise in the mind. It leaves no silence to hear God. Spurgeon would say, anxiety is a form of spiritual noise, a noise that prevents the soul from perceiving that God is still present, still caring, still governing. The more agitated the heart becomes, the less it perceives the constant faithfulness that has never failed. And there is another painful aspect of anxiety. It makes us suffer alone. Even surrounded by people, even supported by promises, the anxious mind isolates itself. It creates inner scenarios no one else can see, imagined journeys only the heart walks, battles that exist only in the mind, yet exhaust as if they were real. Spurgeon knew this loneliness well. He understood that anxiety often does not disappear through quick answers, but through a gradual return to trust, a relearning of rest, a humble return to the simple truth that God is still in control, even when everything feels uncertain. Anxiety grows when we forget that God governs not only outcomes, but processes. He's not merely waiting for tomorrow to arrive. He is present now, sustaining every invisible detail. The problem is that anxiety wants guarantees while God offers presence. Anxiety wants control while God offers companionship. Anxiety wants predictability while God offers faithfulness.